Chapter 1. The crushing pain in my chest, as if a giant boulder were pressing down on it, suddenly vanished. I snapped my eyes open. There was no sharp wailing of an ambulance siren in my ears, nor the chaotic footsteps of doctors and nurses. Instead, there was a soothing, melodious saxophone piece, along with the low chatter and laughter of familiar colleagues and friends around me. The air was thick with the rich fragrance of red roses. I looked down at my hands, no 4 tubes, the skin taut and warm. Looking up again, directly in front of me was a huge LED backdrop, with a flashing message, "Wendy, will you marry me?" I stood frozen, my mind racing in 2 seconds. Wasn't I supposed to have died from acute pancreatitis at the office, after staying up late for half a month to meet a project deadline? No, that's not right. What truly killed me was rage. Just half an hour ago, I accidentally stumbled upon a year's worth of evidence of Wendy and Jason's affair on a shared cloud drive. Those glaring hotel check-in records and obscene chat screenshots stabbed into my chest like sharp knives. I had given everything for this relationship, only to be met with such vicious betrayal. Overcome with fury, my acute pancreatitis instantly worsened, triggering a heart attack. I was literally angered to death by them. My death was too pathetic, and my life too humiliating. In the past few years of this life, I had been nothing but a complete fool. To fund Wendy's designer handbags and satisfy her vain desire for a high-quality life, I would transfer my entire paycheck to her the moment I got paid, not even buying a single new shirt for myself. For the sake of her so-called sense of security, I gave up the opportunity to double my salary in a big city and ended up stuck at a traditional company, working overtime late into the night every day, completely ruining my health. What hurts me even more is that because I had been funneling my savings to Wendy for so long, I couldn't come up with a single cent when my family faced an emergency. 2 years ago, when my father was seriously ill and hospitalized, I had to go around borrowing money just to cover the medical expenses of a mere 100,000 yuan, forcing my elderly parents to secretly take on odd jobs at construction sites to help support the family. Every day, they worry about my marriage and my debts. Their graying hair and hunched backs have become the greatest guilt of my past life. Yet this relationship I've been desperately holding on to is nothing more than a casual fling, in their eyes, something they can walk away from at any time. Luke, what are you spacing out for? Hurry up and change your clothes, Wendy's almost here, she's on her way. A hand landed heavily on my shoulder. I turned around and saw that familiar face, the one I hated to the core, Jason. My college roommate, later a colleague at the same company, the man who always called me his best buddy. In my past life, on the very day I was about to propose, he secretly sent a text to Wendy, urging her to turn me down in public. It was also him who, half a year later, completely stole Wendy away, and even collaborated with the higher-ups at the company to push me aside, snatching the promotion that should have been mine, directly leading to my midlife struggles and eventual death from overwork. Luke. Why do you look so pale? Are you too nervous? Jason put his arm around my shoulder with a feigned look of brotherly concern, but a trace of barely noticeable sarcasm flickered in his eyes. His fingers kept fumbling in his trouser pocket, the glow of his phone screen faintly visible through the fabric. I took a deep breath, forcefully suppressing the surge of resentment within me. Since fate has given me a second chance, I will never endure the same losses and humiliations I suffered in my past life again. It's nothing. I'm just going to the restroom, and I'll also check on the equipment at the sound control booth. I pushed Jason's hand away, my voice calm without a trace of emotion. Jason paused for a moment, seeming to sense that I was a bit cold today, but he didn't dwell on it. Waving his hand, he said, "All right, hurry up, the guys are all waiting to drink to your wedding." I turned around and quickly walked toward the control console at the back of the banquet hall. The sound technician was my junior from college. Seeing me approach, he greeted me with a smile, "Luke, everything's ready. As soon as you kneel down, the video will cut in." I lowered my voice and said to my junior, "Switch the screen projection control to my phone. I'll play the video myself later." Huh. Oh, okay. Though puzzled, my junior agreed. I took out my phone and quickly connected to the console's local network. Memories of my past life surged like a tidal wave. I clearly remembered that Jason and Wendy had been hooking up for over a year. They had a private social media account specifically for me and sharing their illicit rendezvous. Jason's phone number was the password for that account. I stood in the shadow of the console, my fingers flying across the screen. In my past life, I had studied their clues countless times to uncover the truth. Within less than 3 minutes, I successfully logged into that cloud album. It was filled with countless intimate photos of the two, spanning an entire year. The latest update, posted 5 minutes ago by Jason, read, "Luke has already gone to the scene. We'll proceed with the plan later and make that fool look ridiculous in public. Then you can smoothly dump him." Wendy replied instantly, "Don't worry. Just seeing his pretentious face makes me sick. After today, I'll be yours." Looking at these vicious and absurd words, I felt not a trace of anger inside me, only a cold detachment, as if watching a clown perform. "Luke! Wendy's here," came a shout from a friend outside the door. I put away my phone, casually grabbed the wireless microphone on the control console, and slowly walked back to the center of the hall. The banquet hall's lights suddenly dimmed, and a spotlight precisely hit the entrance. Wendy walked in wearing a white dress, greeted by cheers from the crowd. She wore delicate, light makeup, still appearing gentle and pure on the outside, like an untouched white lotus. Jason stood below the stage, frantically signaling to Wendy with his eyes, a sinister smirk of triumph on his lips. When Wendy saw me holding the microphone, a flicker of disgust and panic flashed across her eyes, but she quickly concealed it with a warm, graceful smile. According to the original plan, at this moment, I should have gotten down on one knee and presented the diamond ring that cost me 3 months' salary. The whole venue fell silent, with everyone anticipating the scene. I walked up to Wendy, looked at her hypocritical face, and suddenly let out a self-deprecating laugh. Instead of kneeling, I took a step back. Wendy was stunned, her brow slightly furrowed, and she whispered to me in a very low voice, "Luke, what are you doing? So many people are watching, don't make a fool of yourself. Just get down on your knee." The friends offstage also started to chime in, "Kneel down. Kneel down." I raised the microphone, and my voice, amplified by the state-of-the-art surround sound system, echoed clearly, steadily, and powerfully through every corner of the banquet hall. "Today, I have asked all of you here because there is indeed an important matter to announce." Wendy straightened her chest, a proud expression spreading across her face, thinking I was just building up to something. However, my next move caught everyone off guard. I turned around and pressed the play button on my phone. "But it's not a proposal," I said coldly. The massive LED screen behind me lit up instantly. What appeared on the screen was not the affectionate photos of Wendy and me from the past 5 years, but screenshots of chat records, intimate kissing photos, and the video from just 5 minutes ago titled, "Making a Fool Publicly Embarrassed." In every photo, Jason and Wendy's faces were clearly visible, and even the check-in times and hotel names were unmistakably clear. The entire banquet hall instantly fell into a deathly silence. "Oh my God! Is that Jason and Wendy? Holy crap, that's one solid green hat he's wearing. Wasn't Jason Luke's best brother? This is absolutely beastly." After a brief silence, a wave of murmurs broke out. Wendy's face turned pale in an instant. Staring at the screen in disbelief, her body trembled violently. "No, that's not it. Luke, listen to me, this is photoshopped. It's fake." Jason, down from the stage, also panicked. He rushed onto the stage like a madman, trying to snatch my phone. "Luke! You're fucking insane. This is slander. I'll sue you." I sidestepped, raised my foot, and kicked Jason hard in the stomach. The anger I had bottled up from my past life erupted with that kick. Jason let out a miserable scream and rolled off the stage, scattering a whole pile of red roses. "Slander?" I sneered, looking at Jason on the floor, then at Wendy, whose face had turned ashen. "Jason, your cloud album password hasn't changed, has it? How about I play the video you two recorded at that budget hotel for everyone to enjoy?" At the mention of video, Wendy's legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the ground, tears finally streaming down her face. All her earlier aloofness and grace were gone. I tossed the microphone to the ground, producing a piercing feedback noise. This engagement is off. Wendy, we're done. From now on, you go your way, and I'll go mine. I looked down at them from my elevated position. And you, Jason, from now on, don't let me see you again. If I do, I'll beat you every time. Amid the complex, shocked, and contemptuous gazes of the entire room, I adjusted my suit jacket, didn't even glance at those two again, and strode out of this banquet hall that had cost me so much painstaking effort without looking back. Outside the banquet hall, the night breeze was slightly cool. I tore off my tie and lit a cigarette. Taking a deep drag, the harsh taste of tobacco stung my lungs, making me keenly feel that I was still alive. In my past life, I was toyed with and manipulated in this proposal, becoming the laughingstock of the entire company, burdened with the label of incompetence and sinking into depression for the rest of my life. But in this life, I personally drove this nail of shame back into those two despicable people. In this life, I live only for myself. I exhaled a puff of smoke, crushed the cigarette butt under my foot, and walked toward my brand new future under the neon lights of the city. Chapter 2. The farce at the proposal caused an uproar within the social circle. The next morning, as soon as I walked into the company, I felt the strange glances cast my way. Some were sympathetic, some gloating, and others probing. Ignoring everyone, I walked straight into the general manager's office and placed a pre-prepared resignation letter on the desk. The general manager looked surprised. "Luke, what are you doing? I've heard about what happened last night. I've already instructed HR to deal with Jason's side. You're the backbone of the business, there's no need to let personal matters affect your career." I smiled and said firmly, "Director Zhang, thank you for your kindness. But it's not a personal matter, I have a better career plan. I'm grateful for your care over the past few years. In my previous life, working at this traditional fast-moving consumer goods company, the highest I could reach was a middle management position, stuck with a fixed salary and working late into the night every day. Now, however, I have a clear grasp of the industry trends for the next 3 years. It is now 2023, the eve of the explosive growth of the new energy industry chain and AI automated office software. I clearly remember that half a year from now, a startup studio called We Like Tech will become an overnight sensation for developing a revolutionary AI data processing stream software, and 3 years later, it will be acquired by a giant for 1 billion yuan. Right now, however, they are on the verge of bankruptcy due to a failure to secure funding. After completing the resignation procedures, I returned to the apartment to pack my luggage, vacated the upscale apartment I had rented for Wendy, and moved into a single-person apartment closer to the high-tech park. Over the next week, I registered my own personal consulting studio and used all my savings to purchase part of the original shares held by the founding team of Glimmer Tech. The way they looked at me at the time, it was as if they were seeing a savior. After handling these matters, I attended the industry's highest-profile, Grandview Spring Investment Exchange, with Glimmer Tech's business plan in hand. Clinking glasses filled the banquet hall, where investors and entrepreneurs in suits and leather shoes were everywhere. Holding a glass of champagne, I stood in a corner, my gaze fixed on a figure not far away. It was a woman. She wore a well-tailored white blazer, her hair neatly tied back, her delicate features carrying an air of unapproachable cold elegance. She sat on a sofa, listening to a few entrepreneurs' roadshow with a slight frown, occasionally nodding, though her eyes were filled with politeness and detachment. Shirley, the managing director of Xingjing Venture Capital, known in the industry as the Iron Lady and Unicorn Hunter. Born into a well-off family, she despised being called a trust fund baby, and with her sharp insight, she had backed 3 listed companies over the past few years. In my previous life, I had a brief encounter with her at an industry summit. At the time, she had openly expressed admiration for my proposal, and even privately hinted that if I were willing to switch jobs, she could offer a recommendation. But at that time, my mind was full of Wendy's preference for a stable life. I was afraid that changing jobs would affect our marriage, so I tactfully turned her down. Later, I heard that she remained single and devoted herself entirely to her career. I straightened my shirt collar and walked over. After those chatterbox entrepreneurs left, I stepped forward and politely handed her my business card. "Hello, Miss Shirley. I'm Luke from Blueprint Consulting." Shirley took the card, glanced at it, and her cold gaze lingered on my face for 2 seconds. In a calm voice, she said, "Blueprint Consulting? Never heard of it. What advice does Mr. Luke have for me?" I smiled confidently and looked her straight in the eye. "Not advice, just a heads up. The Blue Ocean Logistics Automation Project, which Xingjing Venture Capital led the investment in last month, might run into major trouble next week. If I were you, I would activate the risk hedging plan right now." Shirley's eyes narrowed sharply. She set down her wine glass and leaned forward slightly, the oppressive aura of a superior instantly washing over her. "Mr. Luke, in business, words carry legal consequences. Blue Ocean Logistics was a project our team spent 3 months conducting due diligence on." "What makes you say that?" I knew all too well about Blue Ocean Logistics' true background. In my past life, this project would see a massive financial fraud scandal erupt next week, caused by a core supplier involved in fraudulent transactions, leading to heavy losses for Xingjing Venture Capital and Shirley suffering a setback on the board. And that fraudulent supplier happened to be a partner of my previous company, where I once stumbled upon their internal ledgers. I said, "The second largest supplier of Blue Ocean Logistics, Dingxing Technology, is actually a shell company. Over the past 3 years, more than 40% of their turnover was fabricated through left-hand to right-hand transactions. If you don't believe me, check Dingxing Technology's electricity usage and tax declaration details at their Jiangqing branch. A manufacturing company claiming an annual output value of over 100 million, yet paying only a few thousand yuan in monthly electricity bills, doesn't that add up?" Every word I said was gold, my tone as calm as if I were discussing tomorrow's weather. Shirley's expression finally shifted. As a top-tier investor, she naturally understood what this detail meant. She gave me a deep look, took out her phone to send a message, then stood up and extended her hand to me. "Mr. Luke, you're far more perceptive than I imagined. This cocktail party is quite noisy today. I wonder if I'd have the honor of inviting you for a cup of coffee tomorrow." "The pleasure is mine." I took her hand, feeling a warm, smooth touch in my palm. Just as we were chatting happily, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a moment's notification. I casually tapped on it and saw a post shared by a mutual friend. In the photo, Jason was holding Wendy at the entrance of a high-end restaurant. Wendy clutched a new bouquet of blue roses, laughing uncontrollably. Jason captioned it, "Thank fate for letting me cut my losses in time. A truly outstanding woman deserves a better life, not suffering alongside some bottom feeder pretending to work hard." Wendy commented below, "It's really been an eye-opener, living through 5 years of hardship with him. You understand me better, darling." Looking at this post that was clearly aimed at me, I couldn't help but sneer. "What did you see that made you smile so coldly?" Shirley keenly caught my expression from the side. "Nothing, just watching 2 clowns perform." Right in front of Shirley, I swiped my finger across the screen, directly blocking Jason and Wendy's contact information and social accounts completely, then clicked to delete. "Shirley, see you tomorrow." I put away my phone and nodded to her. Shirley watched my decisive move, a slight, playful curve forming at the corner of her mouth. "See you tomorrow." Chapter 3. "Luke, you're an absolute genius." In the small conference room of Xingjing Venture Capital, Shirley slapped a document on the table without any pretense, her cool face brimming with barely contained excitement. "A month has passed since our last meeting at the cocktail party. Thanks to my reminder, Shirley not only managed to withdraw Blue Ocean Logistics funds before the crash and short sell in response, but also, following the leads and with my introductions, directly took full ownership of the struggling Weiguang Technology. As a dual consultant in technology and market strategy, I secured 15% equity options in Weiguang Technology and was officially hired by Shirley as Xingjing Venture Capital's chief industry consultant. Dingxing Technology is under investigation for suspected serious fraud. Blue Ocean Logistics has completely collapsed. If you hadn't stepped in early, Xingjing would have lost at least 80 million this time." Shirley walked over to me and handed me a freshly brewed cup of coffee. I took the coffee and inhaled its rich aroma. I only provided a clue. The one who made the real decisions, cut off the chain of interests swiftly and accurately, was you. Glad to work with you. Then it's our joint effort, she said, sitting down on the edge of the desk beside me. Her slender calves swayed slightly in the air, losing some of the sharpness of the business world, and gaining a touch of intellectual charm befitting a mature woman. Over the past month, we had been together almost every day, attending meetings, visiting factories, conducting research, and often working late into the night at the office. My forward-thinking market insights and consistently spot-on judgment had gradually shifted Shirley's reaction from initial astonishment to complete trust and reliance. She would start ordering late-night snacks for me after late-night discussions, and quietly leave a box of throat lozenges on the desk when she heard me cough. Even at some unnecessary social gatherings, this lofty heiress would take the initiative to step forward, cold-faced, and help me fend off the persistent toast-pushing from those old foxes. Next week, there's a new energy summit in City A. How about coming with me on a business trip? Shirley looked at me, a hint of expectation flickering in her eyes. Sure, I didn't refuse. On the third night of the business trip, a sudden downpour hit City A. We had just finished a symposium with the local authorities and arrived at the airport only to find that all flights had been cancelled due to the thunderstorm. The waiting hall was packed with people, noisy and bustling. Shirley had been standing in high heels for a long time, her face looking slightly pale. Let's go sit in the VIP lounge over there for a while. I took her wrist and led her through the crowd. Her wrist was slender and cool. When I held it, her body stiffened noticeably, but she didn't pull away. We sat down in a corner of the VIP lounge. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, lightning split the night sky, and rain poured down in torrents. Luke, I've always been curious. Shirley held the warm teacup, turned to look at me, her eyes appearing somewhat hazy in the dim light. You always act so decisively and clearly, as if you've seen the script in advance. And, there's a kind of world weariness about you that doesn't match your age. I looked out at the rain cascading in sheets, let out a wry chuckle, and said, I suppose when you've been through death, you start seeing things a lot more clearly. Shirley thought I was joking and let out a soft laugh, then sighed. Actually, I looked you up. A month ago, at your original company's proposal scene. Sorry, I didn't mean to pry into your personal life. I turned around, meeting her gaze openly. It's fine, it's all in the past. 5 years of love, gone to waste. But I'm glad I saw the truth before we got married, otherwise, it would have been more than just a humiliation. Shirley looked at my calm expression, a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. She scooted closer to me and whispered softly, Luke, sometimes people leave to make room for the right one to come in. Her loss, she didn't deserve you at all. Our eyes met, and the temperature in the air seemed to rise gradually. The sound of rain faded into the background at this moment. I looked at the woman before me, outstanding, independent, yet at this moment appearing somewhat tender and at a loss. In my past life, I knelt on the ground to please Wendy, only to be betrayed in return. In this life, standing tall and being myself, I've attracted truly radiant souls. Slowly, I extended my hand and took hers, which rested on her knee. This time, it wasn't a handshake for formality's sake. Shirley, I want to start a new relationship, one where I don't have to kneel to please, but one where we can stand side by side. Would you be willing to give that a try? Shirley was stunned, she seemed not to have expected me to be so direct. But after just 2 seconds, a remarkably gentle smile bloomed in her cool, clear eyes. She squeezed my hand back, her fingertips pressing firmly, and lifted her chin slightly. Luke, you're my most core asset now. If you want to break the contract, I won't allow it. Under the thunderstorm-lit night sky, our hands were tightly clasped together. At the same time, in another city thousands of miles away, Jason and Wendy were not having an easy time. Jason was officially fired a week ago for embezzling company funds to buy luxury bags for Wendy, and the scandal at the proposal site tarnished the company's image. Moreover, since my former employer had business dealings with Dingxing Technology, after Dingxing Technology's scandal broke, evidence of Jason secretly accepting kickbacks from suppliers was also uncovered. He now faces a massive claim for compensation from his former employer. Wendy's social media accounts no longer feature posts showing off their romance, replaced instead by endless complaints and arguments. Their financial situation has rapidly deteriorated. The so-called true love has turned into a mess of trivial conflicts without the support of material reality. Chapter 4. 6 months later. Now, let's welcome the winner of this year's Most Investment-Worthy Scientific Achievement Award, Mr. Luke, co-founder of Glimmer Technology, to the stage to receive the award. Under the spotlight, amid the thunderous applause from hundreds of industry leaders and investment moguls in the audience, I walked onto the award stage in a custom-tailored suit, wearing a smile. Glimmer Technology's AI data processing software had been officially released a week ago. With its cutting-edge architecture and overwhelming efficiency, it secured over 100,000 enterprise users in just 3 days, instantly driving its valuation to 300 million yuan. As the co-founder holding core options and technology, my net worth skyrocketed overnight, transforming me from an ordinary worker into a billionaire. Shirley sat in the front row, dressed in an elegant white evening gown, smiling at me with pride shining in her eyes. At the banquet after the award ceremony, Shirley took my arm and generously introduced me to several top fund managers worth tens of billions. This is Luke, not only the core of Weiguang but also the most important partner for the rest of my life. With these words, she essentially made our relationship public to the entire capital circle. Just when I was riding high and reaching the peak of my life, uninvited guests always show up like flies. The next afternoon, as soon as I returned to the office of Xingjing Venture Capital, the secretary walked in with some hesitation. "Sir, there are 2 people outside looking for you. One is named Wendy, and the other is Jason. They don't have an appointment, but they've been making a scene at the front desk for a long time, saying they won't leave until they see you." Hearing these 2 names, my hand, which was signing a document, paused for a moment. "Let them in," I said calmly. Some debts, after all, were long overdue for a final settlement. When the office door swung open, the 2 people who walked in were almost unrecognizable to me. Wendy's designer clothes were gone, replaced by a pilled old coat. Her face was sallow, and her eyes were haggard, with none of the arrogance she once had. Jason looked even more downtrodden. His hair was a mess, he had lost a lot of weight, and his eyes were filled with a mix of worldly cunning and pleading. The moment they stepped through the door and saw the luxurious office, spanning nearly 100 square meters with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire central business district, a flash of intense shock and jealousy flickered in their eyes. "Luke," Wendy's tears began to flow the moment she spoke. She rushed forward, trying to grab my sleeve, but I coldly sidestepped, avoiding her. "Get to the point. I'm busy." I sat in the executive chair, my fingers interlaced, my tone as cold as ice. Jason fell to his knees with a thud right in front of the desk. "Luke. Luke. I'm begging you, please save me." Jason slapped himself frantically. I was such a scumbag back then. I was a beast. I deserved to die for taking Wendy from you. But now I'm truly at the end of my rope. My former company is demanding I pay back a kickback of 1.5 million, or they'll sue me and I'll go to jail. You're the big boss at Glimmer now, 1.5 million is a drop in the bucket for you. Lend it to me, and I'll repay you by being your loyal servant. Wendy also cried out, "Luke, I know I was wrong. Jason is nothing but a liar. He has no money, and he even secretly used my savings to cover his debts. I've realized that you're still the one I truly love in my heart. We had 5 years of love, can you really forget it all? If you're willing to forgive me, I'll break up with him immediately and come back to you." Looking at this man and woman, who have completely lost their dignity scrambling for money, I feel no pleasure at all, only a sense of disgust. In my past life, I was angered to death at my desk because of these 2 people. In this life, they grovel before me like dogs. I sneer at Wendy, 5 years of love. When Jason and you called me an idiot and disgusting on the day of the proposal, where was that 5 years of love then? Jason, when you ganged up with the higher-ups to push me out, hoping to see me homeless, did you ever think of me as your brother? Seeing that a soft approach wasn't working, Wendy screamed hysterically, "Luke, don't be so heartless. You're so rich now, what's wrong with sharing a little? If I hadn't left you, would you have had the motivation to work so hard today? I'm the one you should thank the most. This absurd, twisted logic made me burst out laughing. I pressed the intercom. Security, throw these two troublemakers suspected of harassing a company executive out. From now on, neither of them is allowed to set foot in the buildings of Xinjiang or Weiguang. Luke. You ungrateful bastard. You'll get what you deserve. Jason hurled vicious curses as he was forcibly dragged away by several burly security guards. Wendy, meanwhile, struggled and cried out my name in despair. The office finally returned to peace. I walked over to the trash can, pulled out the diamond ring from my pocket, the one I had kept in a corner all this time, intended for the proposal that never happened. It was a relic of my cowardly, foolish past. I let go, and the diamond ring arced through the air before landing with a crisp clatter at the very bottom of the trash can, buried beneath scraps of paper. Cutting ties with the past completely, I turned around, faced the glorious sunlight, and got ready to go have dinner with Shirley. Chapter 5. A cornered beast will fight back, ancient wisdom never lies. 3 days after I kicked them out, Jason and Wendy joined forces to stir up a storm of public opinion against me online. A sensational post suddenly appeared on major social media platforms, with a headline that screamed, "Exposing Tech New Money Luke, a hypocrite who stole former employer's secrets and drove his ex-girlfriend crazy with premarital cold violence." The post was packed with forged chat records and email screenshots, taking things out of context to accuse me of using my position at my previous company to steal core client data and technical architecture, which supposedly laid the foundation for my current company, Luke Tech. There was even a tearful video accusation from Wendy, in which she portrayed herself as a victim of abandonment after her partner became wealthy, on the verge of mental collapse. As Glimmer Tech was at the peak of its popularity, this post quickly gained traction within just a few hours and made it onto the local trending list. For a time, the internet was flooded with scathing remarks. "I really didn't see it coming, he looks decent on the outside, but he's nothing but a thief and a scumbag. Could the Glimmer Tech software be plagiarized too? The relevant authorities must conduct a thorough investigation." Several previously confirmed potential partners called one after another, stating they would suspend the contracts and wait to see how things unfolded. The PR team at Glimmer Tech is running around in a panic, and there's a sense of unease within the company. "Luke, I trust you," Shirley said in the CEO's office, without a hint of panic. She stood behind me, her hands gently resting on my shoulders, her tone unwavering. "I've already brought in Xinjiang's legal team. No matter what happens, I'm with you." I held her hand and gave a slight smile. "Don't worry, they've practically handed themselves over to the guillotine." Memories from my past life once again became my sharpest weapon at this moment. I know exactly what Jason and Wendy are made of. The real ledgers showing Jason's falsified accounts and kickbacks at his original company, as well as the offshore shell accounts he opened for tax evasion, I have all the evidence in my hands. As for Wendy herself, during her time as a finance assistant at the original company, she exploited her position to embezzle 300,000 yuan in public funds. In my past life, I helped cover up these pieces of evidence and even secretly filled the gap for her. In this life, I didn't help her conceal it. Instead, I used these days to have private investigators and auditing friends gather all this ironclad evidence thoroughly. A flicker of coldness flashed in my eyes. "Shirley, arrange an online joint press conference for me. Invite all the major tech media and legal media outlets. Since they want to play big, I'll make sure they end up behind bars." At 8 o'clock that evening, Weiguang Technology's online press conference was live-streamed on schedule, with over 1 million concurrent viewers. I sat alone in front of the camera, with a large screen behind me. "Dear friends from the media, and all netizens concerned about this matter, hello. I am Luke." My voice was calm, with no trace of panic. "Regarding the malicious defamation against me personally and Weiguang Technology online over the past 24 hours, I am here to make a unified response." I didn't waste any words and directly pressed the clicker. On the big screen, the first thing that appeared was the full real record of Jason and Wendy's premarital infidelity, along with the original video of the proposal scene. First, regarding the relationship. I wasn't the one who abandoned or betrayed. It's the two in the video who maintained an improper relationship for a whole year before the marriage, and conspired to humiliate me at my own proposal. Right or wrong, let the video speak for itself. The comments section exploded instantly. The netizens who had been cursing me out all switched sides. Then, I dropped the second bombshell. It was Jason's bank records of taking kickbacks and cooking the books at his former company, along with the financial evidence showing Wendy had embezzled 300,000 yuan in public funds, each document stamped with an official audit seal. Second, regarding the so-called theft of trade secrets. All the underlying code of Weiguang technology is protected by exclusive patents. Meanwhile, the people who reported me, Mr. Jason and Ms. Wendy, are themselves under serious suspicion of embezzlement and commercial fraud. We submitted this evidence to the Economic Investigation Department half an hour ago. The scene shifted, and a live feed just sent by the police appeared on the screen. In the shabby apartment shared by Jason and Wendy, several police officers in uniform were lawfully reading out their arrest warrants. In the video, Jason collapsed to the floor in fear, while Wendy wildly clawed at him, screaming, "You've ruined me." With the evidence caught red-handed, the rumors instantly crumbled in the face of ironclad proof. In the live stream room, comments were refreshing at a rate of tens of thousands per second. Plot twist. An epic reversal. This is way too satisfying. Direct on-site arrest. Luke is amazing. Pure intellectual domination. As the press conference drew to a close, Shirley slowly walked onto the stage and stood beside me. Facing countless cameras, her voice was clear and resolute. I am Shirley, the CEO of Xingjing Venture Capital. I have been involved in the incubation of every single one of Mr. Luke's projects. He is the most upright, professional, and trustworthy partner I have ever met. Xingjing Venture Capital will always be his strongest support. As for the masterminds behind this malicious rumor and the online trolls, we will pursue them to the very end and hold them accountable. She turned her head and took my hand. Under the witness of countless flashing lights, our eyes met, and in each other's gaze, there was only determination and trust. This conspiracy, originally intended to destroy me, ultimately turned into the most perfect free PR show for Gleam Tech. The company's reputation and stock price directly saw 3 consecutive daily limit-ups after the market opened the next day. Chapter 6. 6 months later. The twilight beach was dyed into a magnificent patch of fragmented gold by the setting sun. A gentle breeze blew, carrying the salty fragrance of the sea. Today is the celebration party for Welight Technology successfully completing its series of funding round, with a valuation exceeding 1 billion, and it also serves as a private party for Shirley and me. The beach is adorned with elegant white roses and a delicate buffet counter. Only our closest family members and a few truly intimate friends are present. My parents sit in the front row, watching me in a formal suit, full of spirit and ambition. My mother's eyes shimmer with tears of joy, while my father proudly pats me on the shoulder. In my past life, I died alone and helpless, leaving my parents to go gray overnight. But in this life, I have made them the happiest parents in the world. Luke, what are you looking at? A soft voice pulled me back to my thoughts. I turned around, and in that moment, I was completely captivated. Shirley was wearing a custom-made pure white wedding gown, walking slowly toward me in the glow of the sunset. The hem of the dress left a long trail in the sand, and despite the lack of excessive embellishments, it perfectly accentuated her cool and noble aura. Her face bore a gentle smile I had never seen before, and her eyes reflected the twilight sky, as well as my own figure. I quickly walked up to meet her, taking her hands in mine. "Shirley, you look stunning." Shirley looked at me, a sly smile suddenly flickering across her face. Then, amid the astonished gasps of all the relatives and friends, this iron lady, who usually dominated the business world, slowly knelt on one knee on the sand. She pulled out an exquisite velvet box from her pocket and opened it, revealing a dazzling men's diamond ring inside. "Luke, you've always been the one to walk toward me. Today, with everyone here as witnesses, I want to propose to you." Shirley looked up, her eyes clear and burning. "Thank you for appearing in my life, helping me avoid the quagmires, and showing me a broader world. Will you marry me and let me legally own you, my core asset, for a lifetime?" The crowd erupted in warm laughter and good-natured applause. My eyes grew a little hot, and waves of emotion surged within me. In my past life, I had groveled in the dust, begging on my knees for a hollow, false affection. But in this life, there is a woman so outstanding, so dazzling, willing to set aside all her pride in public, all for me. I bent down, scooped her up in my arms, and spun her around a few times on the beach. I'm willing. 1,000 times, 10,000 times willing. I took the ring and slipped it onto my finger, then kissed her deeply on the lips. To the accompaniment of waves crashing against the shore, friends and family scattered petals into the air. In the distant, cold prison and on the rundown streets, Jason and Wendy were facing the full force of the law and mountains of debt. When they occasionally saw in newspapers and news reports that Luke, founder of Gleam Tech, has a net worth exceeding $1 billion and is marrying a wealthy heiress, it only stirred endless regret and pain within them, but nothing more. However, all of that had nothing to do with me anymore. At the wedding banquet, I held Shirley's hand, standing by the sea and gazing at the star-filled sky. Shirley, after living a second time, I finally fully understood one truth, I said softly, looking into her sparkling eyes. What truth? She rested her head on my shoulder. The right person is not someone who makes you kneel, drain yourself to please, and still looks down on you for being inadequate, but someone who can see your talent, is willing to hold your hand, and lets you stand side by side with them to see the world. Fate has given me a second chance, not to patch up those long-rotted old dreams, but to grant me an opportunity to correct my own cowardice and to meet the magnificent future that was always meant to be mine. The waves crash gently, and the night is beautiful. My brilliant life is just beginning.